Okay, hello. I want to preface this by saying that I don't do video content. I haven't made like actual video content in terms of anything since I played World of Warcraft like years ago now, and it doesn't really come naturally to me. But it's very difficult to kind of talk about what I want to talk about in this particular situation without actually like putting into video format. There's a lot of different words, and linking it into like a tweet long or whatever, it doesn't really carry along the same effect. But I want to talk about something that I tweeted about a little bit earlier, which is like the sheer amount of abuse that C9 Jensen received over the past like I want to say the past week, but it's actually a lot longer than the past week. It's been like literally all split long. The guy has like put on a fucking powerhouse basically. The guy has like been insane in LCS in my opinion, and he's received like no warrant of praise on the side of Riot and on the side of a lot of analysts and coaches, etc. Obviously, he was the #1 all-pro team mid laner, and is kind of hinted to be like the MVP of the season. And yet, I haven't seen an MVP candidate get this much abuse. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about why. So, the game obviously that's on screen at the moment is C9 versus Dignitas Game 4 of the quarterfinals. And if you're not aware, a little bit later in this game, the game is paused for a bathroom break. It doesn't actually say bathroom break. The actual term is medical emergency. At the time, like nobody really knew why. It's only kind of after the series itself completed that people, I guess, learned what happened. Unless you were there, in which case, from what I heard, I've heard like stories of Jensen running off the stage as soon as the game's kind of paused and things like that. But it wasn't a bathroom break from what I understand. It was a case of Jensen suffering from what was supposed to be a panic attack. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about it because the amount, obviously it's something that's kind of been highlighted before in previous like NALCS finals. It's been very evident when something has gone wrong and Jensen's been playing. It cuts to the player cam and he begins to shake on stage, and it's really actually kind of hard to watch when it does happen. And you'd expect like a kid playing on stage, playing his heart out, you'd expect if he's suffering from this kind of anxiety, if he's suffering from this kind of attack on stage, you'd expect some sympathy. And you'd be wrong, I guess. I want to talk a little bit about this, but the actual post-game threats regarding Jensen. So bearing in mind this kid had a fucking panic attack on stage, playing in front of however many people, playing in front of however many people being streamed, played his fucking heart out. And the in-game comments. So obviously Reddit is always going to be a cesspool. You're always going to get a ridiculous amount of like salt and abuse and stuff like that in post-game threads, especially when it's a popular team that loses. But comments like "not my MVP," incoming Jensen appreciation thread, typical kind of things like, I'm trying to find the exact one, I had it up here currently. Like, here, I'm here to change. Okay, so this is a thread. Bathroom breaks aren't a problem in League. Okay, that's a simple comment. Here's a comment in the actual thread itself. I'm here to change this into a thread comparing Bjergsen to Jensen. Which mid laner is better? Probably the one that can handle the pressure of a playoffs match. Surely it's Jensen because of pointless stats. The higher your KDA, the higher the pressure, honestly. Probably the one who made it past quarterfinals. Now, I don't have... Actually, hang on, maybe I do. I don't have like a full like copy of it. But my cat's on the keyboard, for fuck's sake. But there was also comments regarding kind of like the shaking and things like that, which I find ridiculous. Previously, 2 players, I believe, there's probably been more, but there was only 2 that I could actually kind of find, have come forward and confessed kind of about struggles with panic attacks and things like that on stage. A good example is Liquid Matt. So when Matt kind of revealed that he was suffering from panic attacks, the threads were insane. So, like, here's a comment from, like, Matt's thread. Just wanted to jump in and say Matt's one of the nicest and hardest working players I've ever met. It was difficult hearing him talk about the problems that he's been through. I hope the community can offer him the support in the last week of the split. Another example was I Will Dominate, who made one previously. That was the very first one I believe I actually saw. I don't know about anyone else, but this was deeply humbling for me. As a viewer, I often have this tendency to reduce players to just that, players. But it's quite clear that these people have more going on in their lives, in the game, and life as a professional player. Dom, as someone who's also struggled immensely with panic attacks, I'm glad you're getting better. It's not something I would wish on my worst enemy be well. Meanwhile, when Jensen has this, he receives comments saying that, you should be able to handle the pressure. And the only difference between these players and Jensen is the fact that Jensen is in contention for MVP with one of the most popular teams. And every single person pretty much commenting on these threads is a TSM fan. Now, the interesting part as well is you bring up where when I actually originally mentioned this, someone said to me, hate the fans, not the players. Now, hate the fans, not the players. I don't see that as fair when these people are literally ripping into a kid for playing his heart out. And the worst part is, I do want to mention as well, I'm just going to change it to a different game. Fuck it, we'll put on game number 1. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put on game number 2. The one thing I also want to mention is people commented on how Jensen, they had the narrative driven home the entire split of him being like the best mid laner or whatever. I just want to say, fucking bullshit for the majority of it. So many of the Riot casters, and by that I mean Freak, literally only Freak, it's not so many, it's actually only Freak, abused the shit out of Jensen. The entirety of like, the beginning of the split, he received so much hate, I guess, blame for the semifinals performance. Not the semifinals, sorry, the finals performance of the spring split. It was like every single thing that he did, he would walk on stage and they would relate that to the Zhonya's fuck up or the Echo Chrono Break fuck up. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure you do, Jensen hard carried the shit out of the the final game of what could have been a reverse sweep for Cloud9. He hard carried the shit out of it. And in the very last team fight, he's caught out and dies. And after that, the entire game snowballs. It's over in 2 minutes. I think by the time he respawned, the game was done. And he received so much blame for that. And yet he received no credit for staying in the game, for keeping the actual team itself in the game for so long. And it's insane. If a player like Bjergsen fucks up, or actually, here's a better example. When we'll look at like RNG versus TSM, every lane in TSM like hard entered that game. This is at Worlds. I'm talking about game, I think it was the second game of the round robin. Every single game basically hard entered. I've just realized this is like an actual like this isn't a game from the quarterfinals. This is just a random game, but we'll ignore that. Yeah, every single member of TSM basically hard entered. Didn't respect RNG's team. Bjergsen, he played all right. I think he ended up like 4-0 or something by the time that RNG actually like closed out the game. And he was doing fine. But in a similar note, Bjergsen was called out and the game ended. Now, he received zero abuse for this. Every other member of TSM was the ones who received the abuse itself. Now, the same situation happens to Jensen. And like Sneaky is pretty much one of the entire reasons that they lost that last game. And yet, Jensen is the only one who receives abuse on the level. And like I said, the only difference between these players is that he is in contention with TSM's like Wonder Boy. And it's insane to me that like you would be able to focus this much hate on a kid who's just playing his heart out. And that's all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to mention why kind of it's upsetting, because this guy legitimately is like 80% of his team. He is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the MVP of the split. I think he's fucking insane. And it's not his fault that his team ints around him. It's a team game at the end of the day. Yes, like, Bjergsen has won however many championships, blah, blah, blah. Yep, he's a great player. But he's also, like I said, just because Jensen hasn't actually, like, brought it home and won everything, doesn't mean he's a less valuable member to his team. I would say 100% that Jensen is a much more important player to his team than Pearson is. That's all I'm going to say regarding it. Like I said, I'm not very good with videos. I haven't made them in a very long time, but hopefully if you did watch this, it's been informative. Kind of explained a little bit of my reasoning for it. Alexander's 6-tier build, by the way. But that's all I wanted to say. I didn't want to come across as just, hey, I'm a salty like TS, like a C9 fan or whatever. It just left a sour taste in my mouth that you can flame a kid for having panic attacks on stage and like literally abuse him for that. But anyway, that's all. Thank you for watching if you did, and I appreciate it. Have a good day.